Hey everybody, Bill Caskey Live, 8:30. Can you hear me? Let's get rid of that. All right. What is that? There's a lot of foreign sounds here. Fear of success right there. There we go. Hey, I'm glad you're joining me today. Go ahead and put in the comments here where you're calling in from or logging in from. Love to hear that. Topic today is we're going to talk a little bit about the fear of success, the imposter syndrome, whatever you want to call it. Well, let's start here. This broadcast, as usual, sponsored by the $1 Million Seller. It's a 12-week intense course on how to achieve more with less work in the sales process and in your sales business. It's for business-to-business sales teams, people who want a result of scaling their income, scaling their revenue. They don't want to work harder to do it. In this 12-week workshop, which includes coaching, I also talk about leverage, and I really address how to use leverage in your business to grow it. So that is that. You can go to billcaskey.com/$1 Million Seller. I was on a podcast yesterday, and it's not released yet, but it was a pretty good sized podcast, and the host was really good questions. And we happened on this concept of the imposter syndrome. And there's been books written about it. There's been lots of different names for it. The fear of success anxiety, performance anxiety, tall poppy syndrome. I mean, there's as many names as there are people who have it. And I've struggled with it in my business life. I'm not too ashamed to admit that it keeps coming up for me when I get ready to do something or to launch something, and then I don't do it or don't launch it. And I have all the reasons and excuses in the book of why I didn't do it. But really, it gets down to there was something inside of me that was a little bit afraid of it. And I think we typically assign the fear of failure to this. We typically say, well, that's just fear of failure. You don't want to do it because you don't want to fail doing it. And I'm willing to admit that that might have some part in it, but I don't think that's the biggest part. And I brought this topic up here about, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years ago, not on LinkedIn, but to my clients and to the world. And the world didn't want to hear about it. The world basically said, you don't know what you're talking about. There is no such thing as a fear of success. There was a book written in 1968 that I got a copy of called Overcoming the Fear of Success. It was the only book I could find on the topic. And now they're everywhere. And so I don't know if I was right 15 years ago, or whether I just had a premonition, or whether I just looked at myself. But I want to talk about this today. And I've got a clip here from a guy named Stephen Pressfield that I think is useful. But let's start here with a quote from the Gospel of Thomas, which obviously never made it into the Bible, but apparently it's some of Jesus's teachings. But let's listen to this and see if we can derive anything from it. If you bring forth that is what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you don't bring forth what is within you, what you don't bring forth will destroy you. And Leo Buscaglia is famous for the quote, your talent is God's gift to you. What you do with that talent is your gift back to him. And this is not a religious or spiritual thing, but for those of us who believe in God, believe in a creator, believe in a higher power, then the question is that he or she infused us with this potential. And I want to play a clip from Stephen Pressfield. He was interviewed on a podcast recently. For those of you that don't know Stephen, he is an author. He's written books like The Legend of Bagger Vance, which was a great movie with Will Smith. He didn't write the movie. He sold the movie rights, but he wrote the original book. And he's been a writer and a copywriter. He wrote a book called The War of Art. He wrote a book called Turning Pro. Kind of 35, 50, 60-page booklets that are really handy, really good stuff. And his specialty is digging deep into the psyche of the writer and the creator and why we why we stop ourselves. And so I want to play this clip. It's about a 2-minute clip from a podcast he did recently. Andre Ducom is the interviewer you'll see, but he talks a little bit in here about the fear of success.
Too, Andre, right? It's like fear of success, fear of failure, fear of destitution, fear of embarrassing yourself, fear of looking like an idiot. And somehow we all have to get past that, that I don't give a shit, I'm going to do it anyway. When the pain of not doing the work becomes worse than the pain of doing the work, then we'll actually sit down and do it. Yeah. But the good news is once we start to do it, immediately everything is okay.
You spoke to fear there and its many manifestations of perceptions from other people, criticism, fear of failure, all those things. And one thing in the War of Art you do mention is potentially one of the biggest fears of all is the power of our light. Like what, that we're more powerful beyond measure, that that is also intimidating for so many of us, because it's a death of the small self in a way to know and believe that you're capable of so much greatness, and what that would mean to all the times where you didn't believe that. And I'm just curious for you to share about the power of our own light and the fear we have of it.
It's a great one. I've never quite been able to grasp this myself. But it is true. Like, I think you're quoting Marianne Williamson, I think,
right.
And the idea that we really do have talent. I mean, that's a really scary thing, that we really can move the needle, that we really can produce something great. Because if that's true, then the onus is on us to do it, And I think fear of success, even though I can't say exactly why, is the greatest fear, more than fear of failure, I think, but I can't really say why. It's so scary, but it is scary. It's a real responsibility, and if you don't bring it forth, it's an insult to God, to the universe, to ourselves. It's a terrible insult. Like you say, the graveyard, is full of people that didn't bring it forth because they were afraid. They were afraid that it would be great.
So I want to know what you thought about that. Stephen Pressfield is one of my favorite authors and speakers. The guy's almost 80 years old now, and certainly doesn't speak or act like it, but he's a very thoughtful contributor to this whole idea of psychology of success and achievement. And I think he's really good. So let's talk a little bit about what does fear of success or imposter syndrome mean for we sales professionals, creators, founders, senior level executives. Let's talk a little bit about that. I've developed a slide here that I want to go through. And before we do it, I want you to know that this idea is not something you solve in a 15, 20-minute LinkedIn Live. I mean, I don't want to insult you or anybody that you just get this. Okay, I got it. It's not like shooting a video. Oh, I see what you're doing. You're doing this, this, and this. Okay, it's these things are deep seated, but we have to start talking about them, because when a person comes to me, here's what I typically see. Person comes to me, or a company comes to me, and they say, look, we want more. We want to grow our business. So I say, okay, we'll look at it, we'll assess it, we'll analyze it, and then we'll come back and tell you what we can do to help you. And so we analyze it, we come back and say, these are the things. And at the top, there is a belief that, yes, we need to be doing that. Yes, that is perfect. This is perfect. But at the level where things are executed upon, the sales level, people resist. Now, why do they resist? They resist because a lot of times they say, oh, well, that just won't work in our business, or, well, that's just not me, or, yeah, I know that you want me to write the email this way, but that seems a little too vulnerable. I'm going to write it and protect my belly button and my ego all the way through it and have an email that never gets read or acted upon. So there's a lot of resistance, and I've lived with it my whole training and coaching life. For 30 years, I've lived with it, not just with it personally, but when I go in and work with clients. And these companies pay a lot of money to have me come in and work with their team and suggest things and lay out things and say that this is what you need to do, and they don't do it. Not all of them don't do it. Some of them, it's the 80-20 principle. 20% of the people say, oh my God, that's awesome, I'm going to do it. 80%, I got to have proof. I can't go to the trough just yet. I know I'm thirsty and I see the water over there, but I got to make sure the ground is, we have all sorts of excuses. And so I've been examining, well, what are these excuses? What are these excuses about? When I say to someone, hey, you should, and they have 500 email addresses, and I say, you should write an email and talk about some of the problems they solve. Well, yeah, but I don't have time. I don't really have time this week to do that. I'll carve out some time the first week in May. How about that? If I carve out, a few hours, and I always feel like you don't have 2 hours between now and May 1st. It's an excuse. So what's the origin of those excuses? By the way, make sure if you are on, comment, let me know where you're logging in from. Love to hear it. So what's the origin of those excuses? I think the origin is fear of success. I don't think it's fear of failure. I think it's fear of success. And so let's look at this imposter syndrome through those eyes of where in our lives, and I say our here, I say our, I'm not saying your, notice that I said our, meaning me. I'm a part of this dilemma that I'm always in, which is, well, I've got all these choices. Why am I not picking one of these choices? And why does this choice over here look so good? And I postpone my engagement in it. So here's a little bit of how you know. How do you know you're suffering from imposter syndrome or fear of success? Whatever tagline you want to put on it. I think we've gotten away from fear of success because it just sounds too brutal. Whereas imposter syndrome, it sounds a little more erudite. It sounds a little more academic. So, but I don't care what you call it. So I think you first look at yourself and say, where am I procrastinating? Especially if it's in an area, not like cleaning the garage. I procrastinate that, not that. But if you're procrastinating, you know what? I need to create a webinar for prospecting. And I need to do it. And I need to, because I want to be able to invite people and have a panel discussion. I want to team up with other people in the industry. And I want to put on a program on a periodic or consistent basis, but you're not doing it. That's where you have to look. So examine it, examine those areas where procrastination is obvious, and pick out a couple of those things and let's run them through this filter. Number 2, do you have an attachment to the present condition? It's easy for somebody to come to me and say, I want more. I want to go from 100 grand to 300 grand a year. I want to triple my revenue of a company. I want to get to $25 million. We're at 10 right now. It's easy to say that in the safety of just a discussion. But when it comes to changing behavior to do the things you need to do to get there, that's where the resistance happens. And the resistance happens, I believe, because we are attached to our comfort zone. We are attached to the present condition. We say, we don't like the results of the present condition, but we kind of like the present condition. We kind of like, we don't like making cold calls. We don't like being rejected. But shooting a LinkedIn video, ooh, that's way beyond my comfort zone. So I guess I don't like it that much. I guess I don't dislike it that much. So what are the attachments to the present conditions, even though those conditions could be mediocre? Number 3, the third thing is recognition of what it is. In other words, let's say that I come to you and you've watched some of these lives, and we talk a lot on here about creating a piece of content that would capture the attention of your typical prospect. If you're in the dental field and you have a solution that will generate $500,000 of new business for the dentist, and it costs $40,000 to buy, then capture that attention. Say, would you like to earn an extra $500,000 in your practice? And the question you have is, will it cost me anything? Yes, it will cost you $40,000. Are you willing to look at something that'll give you a 12x return? Just capture the attention. Capture the attention. I say to do that video, and you say, I'm going to put that off for a little bit. Maybe June, maybe May, maybe June. I got to let things settle down here. I love that one. Some things never settle down. But so what is it about that? Well, it's the attachment to the present condition. I don't have enough pain to change. Pain is, there's always the pain of change and the pain of staying the same. And if the pain of change, a pain of staying the same is not that painful, I'll go ahead and continue to make cold calls. I'll forego the video or the message or the webinar. I'll forego that because you know what? That would be really painful. So number 3 is recognition of what it is. So once you identify the attachment to the current condition and you say, oh, I see why I'm not doing it. This requires a fair amount of awareness too, by the way. It's not something that you don't think about and it fixes itself. Sorry, it just doesn't fix itself. Probably gets worse. So part of this is recognition of what it is, meaning we need to look and say, where am I procrastinating? What am I attached to that's causing me to not do the thing I know deep down I need to do? And just the recognition that it's a fear of success, that it's an imposter syndrome, that it's that voice. It's not the goddess voice in your mind. It's this satanic voice in your mind that says, no, 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 no. If you did that, it might work. See, I think the difference is the fear of failure is you do that, it might not work. Fear of success is you do that, it may work. Then what? Then what are you going to do if it works? What if it really works? Pressfield even talks about the Trump effect, and it's not a political reference. It's the Trump effect of look how arrogant he is. And like him or not, you have to admit he's a pretty arrogant guy. I don't know that any of us want to work for him. We might want to vote for him, may not, but we don't want to work for him. But he says a lot of times people look at a successful person, Elon Musk, Trump, whomever, and we say, oh, that person's he's a piece of crap. Steve Jobs, he's amazing inventor, amazing creator. But we looked at his personal life. We say, oh, see what that success does to you? Gives you cancer, alienation from your daughter, a lot of problems, a lot of drug problems, not with Jobs, but so we see that a lot. We see, remember the VH1 Behind the Music, and it was 1 hour of ups and downs of an artist. Amy Winehouse, she went up and she went down, and she went up and she went down, and she went up and finally killed herself. And we say, when we see those stories, we say, see, that's what success does. And we're piped, that stuff is piped into our life all the time. So then we say, well, why do we really want to be successful? Do we really want to be successful and reach out of our comfort zone? So I think we have to recognize what it is and be kind to yourself as you do this too. This is not something you beat the hell out of yourself. Oh, there you go again, Bill, worrying about success. There you go. I knew it. I knew you would never get out. No, just say, look, oh, I see what it is. Okay. I see what it is, because if I did this and then this happened and this happened, that could lead to success, and I'll be really busy then. And maybe I don't want to be really busy then, or maybe I'm trying to scale back and that's okay. Whatever it is, it is. So recognition of what it is, I think, is important. And then the last one is just get more vivid of our vision. I think that a lot of times we will look at the thing to be done, whether that's shooting a video, creating a webinar, whatever that thing is in your business, and you all have them. You all have those things. I do too, that just don't get done. We have to look and say, well, what's the vision? Can we look beyond that? Can we look beyond that shooting of the video, or beyond that creating of a webinar, or beyond that making a call that we've been reluctant to make on a prospect or a past client that we just feel like, we got to make it. I had that happen about a month ago, where I had a client from a couple of years ago. It was like a 1 day at a time client. And they brought me in 3 or 4 times in 2022, and we didn't do much. We didn't do anything last year. Maybe we did one virtual thing. And I thought, I wonder if they're mad at me. I wonder if they found somebody else. I found somebody else. And it wasn't really a ongoing client, but they had good relationships and they all liked the material. And so finally one day I'm like, well, I just got to find out. So I picked up the phone, called the VP of sales. No problem at all. We're looking at planning our next 6 months of training and initiatives. Let's talk the end of March. I want to get you in. It was all good, or it was all okay as far as I could tell, but it was the the mindset that I had that, well, what's wrong? What's wrong with me? And what if I do? We got to get past that. And we have to look past and say, what's the vision? The vision of my business is to generate X amount of dollars, to have a certain lifestyle, to be a certain status in the market. And if we can look at that, then these things that stop us now aren't that important, because our vision is for success versus our vision of being afraid of success. So I would say the first thing you do is just examine, procrastinate. Where are you procrastinating? Examine it and say, okay, is that procrastination because I'm afraid of success there? And you have to answer yourself honestly, which I'm sure you will. Number two is just attachment to, am I attached to the mediocrity? How many times have you seen people who you look at and say, good God, they could be so successful, so much more than they are now. Why don't they snatch that and go do it? It's because they're attached to the present condition. And they don't see it as mediocre. They see it as, well, it's just my life. Number three, recognition that might be a fear of success. And number four, look beyond it. Try to get vivid about a vision. A couple things else that I had here, and I appreciate you guys being on with me today. So examining it. Oh, a lot of times we are held back by siblings, by parents, by scripts that we learn when we're young. You know, we all went through 12 to 15 years of schooling. Well, I guess not 12 years. Yeah, 12 to 16 years of schooling and maybe more. And we were indoctrinated in a certain belief. I'm not talking about conspiracy theories here, but we were at school a long time, every day. And school taught us things about how to behave, how to raise your hand when you want to, don't get out of line, make sure the line's straight, be very clear. Up, you're out of line, Kasky, Bill, little Billy, get back in line. So you learn a lot of things about conformity and compliance in school. And that's not a bad, you have to. You got 35 kids in your class. You've got to create compliance. But then when we're 35 years old and a guy like me comes along and says, hey, I want you to shoot some more videos for LinkedIn, we say, out of compliance. They're not complying to me. They're complying to the culture of most people in my company don't shoot video on LinkedIn. So therefore I'm not going to do it. So a lot of times you have to look at the surroundings and the scripts that we've grown up with, and changing scripts is really hard. You've seen it happen through generations, where one generation is poor and downtrodden, and the next generation is poor and downtrodden, and the next and at some point somebody reaches up, somebody gets out of that, but they can't bring everybody else out of it because it's so in the DNA and the gene. And I know that there's a whole field of study around that. So, and I'm not privy to that field of study, but we all know it happens. I mean, we all know generational wealth, generational poverty. We see it all the time. It's not like our eyes aren't open there. But I would suggest you, as you think about this fear of success, you look back and say, where have I been indoctrinated to the world of compliance and conformity? I know I have. I mean, when I started doing this live video stuff here a few years ago, or the podcast, I had to fight through a little bit of that. Who are you? Come on, Bill. Who are you to do this? There's other people. They do it better. They look better. They're younger. They wear better clothes, nicer clothes. They have better cameras. They don't have better audio, but they have better cameras. Had to get that in there. So we all have this to fight through. And sometimes the best thing to do is just, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it and give it a go, like the Brits and the Australians. I'm just going to give it a go. Just give it a go. What the heck? Let's do it. Let's see what happens. I love that attitude versus, well, I'll do it, but we've got to examine this and analyze it. We've got to look. And the people in my $1 Million Seller program, the people who just invested, I mean, it's a miniature investment, $297 for 12 weeks. It's nothing. It's nothing. If you don't have $297, you shouldn't even be on this live call to invest in yourself. But those people who invested and went in early, they're moving. I just got an email last night from a guy who said, this is amazing. I've tweaked everything in my sales process. Things are starting to happen. But most other people are on the sidelines. Well, you know, I'm not sure I want to do it now. I'm kind of busy now. Okay. All right. So the world will leave you by. The world will pass you by. Don't let the world pass you by. You're better than that. Okay. Once again, broadcast brought to you by all $1 million seller. You can find out more at billcaskey.com/$1 million seller. Take a look at that. Get in that if you can. All right. Awesome job today. Appreciate you all. Comments? No comments today. Man, I know it's kind of scary. This topic is scary. That's why I played that. That's why I played that epic music at the beginning. You want to hear that again on the out? Let's hear it on the out. Yeah, it's kind of a little hip hop tone to it. A little impending eventish. I like that. I don't know if you guys can even hear it. Maybe you can. All right. I'll see you guys next time. See you Monday. Have a great weekend. Bye.